So I just watched the new Christian animated film David, directed by Phil Cunningham and directed and co-written by Brent Dowes alongside Kyle Portsbury and Sam Wilson. Now, as a Christian, I do like to check out some new Christian movies that come out if they pique my interest. And yes, this film has not yet been released, but I did have the opportunity to see this movie early, so I decided I would go ahead and check it out. And I have to admit, this movie was somewhat disappointing because it's not exactly what I was hoping it would be. So I'm going to go ahead and give the positives that I have for this film out of the way. Most of the acting was good, aside from a few off performances like Phil Wickham as adult David. I didn't think he was very good, and I'm not sure if he has a country accent in real life or not, but it kind of felt like a country accent was slipping into his performance sometimes. And this isn't a problem, but young David to me sounded a lot like Tom Holland, and I found it kind of distracting throughout the beginning of the movie. Most of the animation was good. All of the backgrounds looked really good. There were a couple of shots where it actually kind of looked like it could be photorealistic. The designs of the characters ranged from slightly realistic but still a bit cartoony to being a bit more cartoony, and the two styles surprisingly blended well. Samuel and Saul's designs in particular I thought looked good. But there are some character designs that I did not like the King of the Philistines looked more like a human version of King Julian for some reason, and Goliath looked like a Vegas stunt show performer. Those two designs I thought were pretty off. And in terms of general positives, yeah, I think that's it. Most of the humor was not funny. Like it was just kind of general kid movie fare, and I definitely got the vibe that it was desperately trying to be Veggie Tales in terms of its humor. Like they have jokes like David has a fat brother who likes to eat. David has a brother who's basically an emo. That was kind of weird. And there are multiple times where they do the whole it's funny because they said one thing, but then the opposite thing happened. What an original joke you got there. Like, I'll admit some jokes did make me laugh, like some random comments that people had before Goliath showed up were funny. A thief character that's introduced later in the film, I thought he was pretty funny. And one joke involving David's mother actually made me laugh pretty hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like that one's later in the film, and it was pretty funny. I liked that one. The story was somewhat interesting. I'll give it that. I sort of expected this to just be about David as a child and end with him fighting Goliath, but it actually went on for about an hour after the encounter with Goliath. I guess notching into spoilers. And that part of David's story isn't as well known, so it was kind of cool to see it actually adapted. And you know, there are some things in David's life that were brought into the movie that you don't see adapted a lot too. Like when VeggieTales told the story of David and Goliath, they didn't bring up the fact that David was like anointed to become king when he was older. So that was interesting to see done here. But when David is an adult, I will admit chunks of the story they tell are just pretty reminiscent of Prince of Egypt. So at that point, I was just kind of thinking I'd rather be watching Prince of Egypt. And some parts actually felt a bit odd when you compare them to the original Bible story. Like at the beginning, when David is brought before Saul because he needs a musician, like in the Bible, they explain why, but in the movie, it's not properly explained why they feel the need to have a musician play for Saul. Like the most we get is he's a bit troubled. And that's it. That's all we get. Like they don't explain further than that. And also in the Bible, David falls in love with and eventually marries Saul's daughter. Saul's daughter is not even in this movie. I kept waiting for her to show up, and she never did. I thought that was pretty weird. And like ironically, like in that portion of the movie where David is growing up, David and Saul's son were kind of giving off best friends who travel together vibes, which I'm sure wasn't intentional, but That's what it felt like. So it's kind of weird. And the songs are not good. I did not know this would be a musical going in, and it was a rather unpleasant surprise, I must say. Two of the songs that were sung by David's mother, those were fine. She has a good voice, and the lyrics for those songs were fine. But every song sung by David, and most of the songs in the movie are sung by David, are bad. They pretty much range from rip-off Disney songs, like the song at the beginning just feels like a generic "I Want" song you'd see in a Disney movie, and they're either that or generic Christian pop without much anything setting it apart. And it does not help that David's voice is noticeably auto tuned, especially when he's a child. Like, it is very noticeable and it sounds very off. Like, it doesn't sound as bad when he's an adult, but it still is not a pleasant singing voice to be listening to. And there are some kind of weird things here and there. Like, I remember thinking that when David grows up, it looks like he's aged about 10, 15, 20 years. And meanwhile, his younger sister looks like she's aged like 5 years. So that's not consistent at all. It's kind of odd. And there's some general inconsistencies like that. Maybe you could chalk that up to an animation error. I'm not sure. But either way, there are some things like that that I kind of noticed, kind of took me out of the film. So, yeah, overall, this film is sadly just a generic kids' film that's more aimed at a Christian audience. Like, it's a fine enough film to sort of drop your kids off at while you go and see Avatar 3, because they're both supposed to come out the same weekend. But it doesn't really serve much of a point beyond that, or something to show at Sunday school. And I'm going to give David a D. I think that was not on purpose. It's just that's the grade it gets. And yeah, King of Kings is still the best Christian movie that was released this year, and even that was not spectacular or anything. So those are my thoughts on David. I know I know I just said that I got an early screening, so I know it's not out yet. But when you do see it, and let me know what you think when you do see it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to see more reviews like this in the future. And on that note, I will see you next time. Have a great day.